Veronica from Etours, Russia, and you know where we're going? We are going to a wonderful park and palace ensemble close to St. Petersburg, and it's known as Peterhof. Basically, there are two ways of getting to Peterhof. The first one is by car, and it's going to take around 40 minutes to drive from the city center to Peterhof. The second is the best. You can get to the central pier close to Palace Square, and from here you can get a boat which is known as Meteor. This is the express motor ship to Peterhof. There are three advantages of getting this ship. First one is that you can make it to Peterhof in 30 minutes. The second one is that you're floating on Neva River and you're passing the different sightseeing on the way, and you can see some places and landmarks of St. Petersburg from the board. Thirdly, you are going to get into the Gulf of Finland, so consider it to be out of the sea. Let's try this Meteor boat. The boat has three different categories, so it is divided into three different parts. One is in a tail. This would be economy ticket with the large windows and the observe to the Neva River. Let's go further. We are in the middle of the boat. To get here, you can get the ticket for standard class. So there is a little buffet here where you can get some drinks. The TV set, which tells you the information about your trip and everything about St. Petersburg and Peterhof. And the seats are arranged in 3 rows. And we are getting to the business part, which is located on the nose part of the ship. So as you can see, around the whole area there are the windows, large ones, so you can observe the whole view the whole way to Peterhof. And the seats are here arranged in 2 different sides. When you arrive to the pier of Peterhof, it's necessary to get tickets. So the ticket offices are located also very close to the pier, and after that you can start your wonderful journey to this palace and park ensemble. Usually summer travelers to St. Petersburg are always aware of the existence of such a wonderful place as Peterhof. For the splendor and grandeur of this place, once it was named as the Russian Versailles. Take, for instance, one of the main Cascade fountains in the park, which is just next to the palace. This is the Cascade, which is known for the sculpture in the middle. The sculpture is devoted to Samson cheering the month of the lion, as a symbol of the victory of Russia over Sweden. This is the third sculpture group, as the previous one was stolen during the Second World War, as Peterhof was occupied by Nazi German troops. And the third one was created with the help of local people, because there were no schemes or sketches preserved, and local people would come to the museum and would give their personal pictures taken before the war, and the sculpture would be created according to these photographs or pictures. The main statue of the main Cascade fountain, so the Samson statue, has the height for 22 meters. And the weight of it is 3.5 tons, and it was decorated with a golden leaf. The weight of it is 3.5 kilograms. One of the main deals of Peter the Great was actually the getting the shore of Baltic Sea. So he started a military campaign against Sweden at the very beginning of the 18th century. When some territories were captured by Russians, Peter would found new settlements. Peterhof was actually founded on the former territory of Sweden and some other cities as well. So while constructing new fortification system, new different cities here, he needed a spot or like a walking palace where he would rest during his business trip. And he took this place as the spot for the future walking palace. It's a small one, it's known as the Monplaisir, which can be translated into English as My Pleasure Palace. He would rest there during his trips around the town. When exploring the territories around this place, he found out that it would be a nice place to found his Russian Versailles. Originally, he wanted to get the water for the fountains from Baltic Sea, but then engineers explained to him that the salty water or seawater wouldn't be good for the pipes. So they started to explore or to discover the territory for the existence of different ponds and natural springs. And finally, they found it. So Peter the Great picked up this place for the future grander park with the fountains and the palace. This place was considered to meet the standards of the European parks of that time and also emphasized the victory of Russia over Sweden. So Peter the Great himself took part, I would say took major part in the creation of the sketches and plans of the future park and the palace. Peter the Great wanted the fountains to play a significant role in the park design. So he took part in the creation of the plans of the fountain system. And finally, we have 150 fountains with the 6 Cascade fountains. Cascade fountains is a kind of the artificial waterfalls, like one you can see behind me. Peterhof fountains have no special system which was raise the water to the desired level by mechanics. No water pumps, no pressure facilities. Everything comes naturally. By this I mean that the height of the fountain jet is regulated by the diameter of the pipes. And the pipes were originally made of wood, of course. But since the wood is not the suitable material for such a system, it was replaced with a cast iron later. Imagine Peter the Great invited you to enjoy the facilities of the park and the palace. So you would get the boat and you would come to the palace, floating along the special canal which links the fountain with the Gulf of Finland. We are on the top of the Cascade fountain, the main one. So if you look around, if you look on the fountain, you will find plenty of statues which are made of metal and gilded. So all of them somehow related to the theme of victory. It's actually mythological creatures representing the different parts of the war theme or the victory theme. Today we are going to visit also the Grottoess, which is a part of the fountain museums, and we are going to find out how do they work here. exhausted guest after the walks in the park would come to this grotto for a welcoming gift from Peter the Great. But instead of the gift, they would see the vase with the fruits, and of course everyone would like to taste the food. But instead of the treat, they would get a treat. Peter the Great was in love with making jokes. When you just stretch your hand to get the fruit, the water jet comes up and splashes into your face. The main Cascade fountain has plenty of statues. They are all made of metal and they are gilded. Within them you will find a statue devoted to Versailles, who killed Medusa according to the myth. And instead of holding the head of Medusa, he's holding the head of Karl XII, the Swedish king or the Swedish emperor, who was defeated by the army of Russia. Peterhof, along with some other parts of the Leningrad region, was occupied during the Second World War by Nazi German troops. Leningrad itself was never captured by them, even though that there was a siege of Leningrad. Over here along the alleys of the park you will find the photographs which were taken after the Second World War. And here you can see how the palace was destroyed. So here is a very famous fountain called the Triton fighting the sea monster. The Triton is actually a male mermaid, or is a symbol in this case of a very young Russian fleet fighting with a very old Swedish fleet. The other cascade is located in a few steps from the main cascade, and it's known as the Chess Hill. The thing is that in the 18th century, Peter the Great ordered the construction of the cascade, which would have kind of stones reminding of ruins. So the first name was the Ruin Hill. At the end of the 18th century, they decided to decorate it with 3 different dragons. So they were made of wood at the first time. The dragons were supposed to guard the treasury store inside the grotto. Then, in the 19th century, according to the fashion trend of that time, to follow all of the Asian trends or trends coming from the Asian world, everything Japanese and Chinese, they also added the chessboard. Walking along the park, you will finally come up to the place where we have 2 wonderful fountains. We call them Roman fountains. The thing is that these are bigger copies or bigger replicas of those which are stand next to the Cathedral of Saint Peter in Rome, in Italy. In the park, Peter the Great would show all of the beauties, and then after their long walk with the guests, he would invite them to a special palace, Monplaisir, which is behind me. But all of the guests were supposed to get there by the special road, and we know it as the water road or the trick fountain water road. When Peter the Great get to a special position, he would give a sign that the fountains could start working. And all of the guests would appear under the huge arch of the water jets, soaking wet, not happy because they were wearing the huge gowns, so imagine everything was wet, including these makeup. Usually it was very heavy makeup running down. Then also they used to wear wigs, and the wigs were fixed with a kind of powder, usually with a powder, but sometimes it could be fixed with a flour. So everything was just running down, a mess. They were of course unhappy, but the happiest person, laughing out loud, was Peter the Great. The palace Monplaisir has quite an interesting name. It can be translated from the French language as Monplaisir Palace. That was the first construction on this territory, and this is the beginning of the whole ensemble of park and palace in Peterhof. So the palace itself was quite modest. It had only 4 rooms, the kitchen and the buffet. And there were wings of the buildings which were served as the galleries. The other trick fountain is known as Chinese umbrella, so it's in the shape of Chinese umbrella. What was the trick behind? Well, imagine it's a hot day and people were wearing this heavy clothes. It was necessary to find some shade, and then they would get here to sit down on a beautiful bench. But suddenly, fountain was switched on. Strolling through the alleys of the park, you will find some different sculptures as well. This one, for example, was ordered by Peter the Great, and it came to Russia from Italy. It dates back to the ancient times, so it's an antique statue devoted to first man in the world, Adam. You can also find his couple, the statue devoted to Eve, and the Eve statue was installed after the death of Peter the Great, with the help of his second wife, Catherine I. Throughout the ages, the main target for Peter the Great was getting the seashore of the Baltics. Then, thinking on the project of the future palace, he picked up this place to lay out the palace, especially for 2 things: contemplating the water and enjoying the victory.